Hello, and welcome to another video on Povop City, where today there is quite a lot to be done. Now, the first problem I would like to solve is transportation between this area and over here. Now, because this area does not have the services, just schools and a police station and whatever, transportation is necessary, which is leading to many people having to have cars. Now, I know there are a ton of houses here just for this much parking, but I still want to reduce reliance on cars. And I think that's going to be one of the more main focuses of this video, of connecting these two cities up more through walkable areas, putting districts and shops and workplaces between them too. So I do want to look into a new bus line. Now what I think I want to do for it is actually add a small bus station. And I think I could put it just right here. Now it is quite pricey, but I think it's a worthwhile investment as this area is pretty important and pretty central, with tons of offices and businesses, and additionally, quite a few homes around it. So what I'm going to do is now actually make a bus line. Of course, I am going to add a bus stop over here, and I think that the actual stop could be put just right here. And there we go, that's the align complete. Now, as I have done before, I do think I want to add a little more infrastructure for buses, particularly along these larger roads. And there we go. That should be, I think, plenty of infrastructure for now. As again, we are trying to make a city focused on public transit and walking and biking. I do think I am also going to add a few sound barriers just because it makes it look nicer, and I think it makes sense as there are businesses and offices over here too. Hopefully that reduces reliance on cars and fewer people have cars. But now what I would like to do is actually build another highway. Now, I know that sounds a little silly, but I want to have another highway that goes over here. I want it to snake along here and go back here. Because if we look over here, there's actually quite a bit of buildable space, especially if you account for this area too, which we could have it split off. And especially because these kinds of areas are going to be great for ports, I just think it makes a ton of sense. So that's what I'll get to right now. There we go. That is our highway infrastructure upgraded. Now I added a roundabout here just because I think it makes much more sense than a traffic light, especially because there is already a roundabout here, and I hope it would be much safer than a traffic light and also help traffic flow much better. Now I do want to also connect up these roads and start building some homes along here too. And twice more, we will use roundabouts. I am aware this road is pretty curved, but the topography here is pretty weird. And pretty difficult to build on too, as it's on a pretty steep hill and then this is essentially a valley between the roads. Now, that's not going to be a huge problem, but again, that's why I had to do that, and then we'll have regular roads down here too. And that is our basic road layout for this area. So now I do want to get to zoning. Now of course I am going to put some businesses and probably some offices along this main road, but over here we're going to keep it to residential. And there we go. This is this sort of area complete, and of course in the future if we want we can add something like businesses, offices, or maybe even more homes along this road. With that said though, I did see someone mention a problem. Now what I saw was something about not being able to connect to the internet, which I'm not sure if I can find it. But that does make me want to check something. And yeah, as we can see we have absolutely zero coverage for internet or telecom. So we really do have to figure out a solution to this, because if we build something, it's just not even going to work, no matter where pretty much. So I think we have to invest in something bigger, such as the telecom tower, which means we have to use a development point in communications and unlock it. Now of course that means we do have to take out a little bit of a loan, but that's not to worry as we have plenty of a surplus. Now I do know that our power receptor does have an upgrade that will give some amount of coverage. And it actually does a pretty fair share, but now people start using it and it doesn't seem all that great. But over here we have a telecom tower. I don't really want to build it here, but I feel like this is just a perfect spot. Now it is maybe a little bit out of place, but I don't think it's too crazy that it's not acceptable to go there. Now additionally, I am seeing problems with the healthcare, which probably makes sense because our hospital is all the way over here. And that might be a traffic problem more than anything. And over here I am seeing a pretty large traffic backup. So my solution to this is going to be both adding a 5-lane asymmetric road and also shrinking the roundabout. I don't know why I thought a roundabout of this size was even needed. So this should save a lot of travel time when going around the roundabout. Here though, now that we have a pretty huge telecom tower, I think it makes sense to have some amount of offices over here. And there we go. Now I think this is a pretty complete area on its own, as it is residential, it has commercial, it has its own services too, and it is going to have a few offices. Now I am seeing there is a traffic backup over here, which I'm honestly not too sure why. I think this might be a problem with the path finding of the car, because it was in this lane. But I also am pretty surprised to see that there are this many cars over here. As we can see though, the bus lines have filled up, which means more buses are needed, and that would also explain why people are using cars. Now of course we don't want to cut off this area either, so I am going to add a stop over here. And there we go. Now I really think car reliance should fall, as we can also see there aren't a ton of cars parked on these roads. Now that might just be because people haven't moved in yet, or because people really just don't feel the need to use cars. Now at this point, because we have built our bus station, I do think it makes some amount of sense to add a line connecting out here. Now I know that is a little silly in a way, but at the same time I think it just makes a ton of sense, as it will allow people to move in much easier, as already we have a pretty solid foundation for our bus system. And there we go. That is all of our lines completed. Now something I would like to do is probably add station services. Although they are expensive, I do think it's going to be an overall positive because I think more people will use our bus station. And we can actually fit two in pretty comfortably. And now what I think I will do is add a few more businesses. Now we do have quite a bit of an excess of money, and we do have quite a bit of a loan out, so I am going to pay a little bit of it back. And now what I really want to look towards is just zoning. And I think we're going to do the same thing we did here, over here. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky. As much as I want to just take a road from over here, I don't think that's really doable. And I think what it will make most sense to do is probably to take a road from either here or here. And I think the best option is going to be over here, just because this is going to have quite a few stops along it and eventually turn into a road with homes, businesses, or offices on it, while this is probably going to stay a highway. So that's what I'm going to start on now. And there we go, that is another successful area completed. And again, it's going to add a lot of density as these are high density, low rent homes here, row houses here, and then just regular medium density there. Now again, I think this area is looking much more complete, and I think much more like a European city, as it really does just have a ton of roundabouts, which maybe even too many, but I think it's alright. I would like to see if it is possible to change this road to also support bikes. Well, that was probably the most destructive bike and pedestrian path ever, but nonetheless we got it to work out, and I think it's just going to make transport a lot easier, especially if you do want to use the bus line, as instead of having to go around and walk on a highway, which is pretty crazy, you can just walk across this path, and then just go down this alley, take this path, across the street, and there you go, you're at your bus station for the day. Now I am noticing there is a bit of a traffic jam going on, and it is still on the same corner, and I really am just not too sure how to fix it. I do think though I am going to try to probably just change the type of road at the receptor. And hopefully that should fix our problem. Nonetheless, we still have a ton of demand. So I would like to solve that and continue building. I think what I am going to do is bring another road over here and pretty much do the same thing I did here. And as we can see, people are already starting to use this road. And actually, I'm seeing, I think, a lot more people start to use this road instead of this road. So I think we might actually make a change, and instead make this a highway, and make this a regular road. But we can wait on that. For now though, we won't zone anything along this road. And the reason I would like to do that maybe is because that would allow us to put a couple of buildings here, which would further increase our density. And there we go. That is the basis of this area. Now, something I have realized is that I really haven't been putting parks anywhere, which isn't necessarily a problem, but it's definitely something we need to fix. Now, I do just want to go around and wherever I can fit a park, just put one. And that is our park coverage much better. It has also snowed, which gives an interesting look to the map. It does look really, really bland, but that's okay. It is actually getting warmer. Nonetheless, though, we do want to build our homes pretty soon so we can start capitalizing on this area. And that's actually most of our residential demand gone. But I am also seeing, again, the traffic jam over here is getting really backed up, which is becoming a really big problem. So I do think we are going to have to not necessarily go to drastic measures, but we are going to have to get rid of a few commercial shops and put a roundabout. Now hopefully this will fix our issue permanently, but we will really just have to see with time. Now, just to be sure it does do exactly that, I am going to make it so both lanes can go forward. And as we can see, our buses are also getting pretty backed up. So to fix this, I am going to put a traffic light onto this crosswalk, and hopefully that will fix our problem permanently. And then again, we see medium density demand and low density demand is back. And then once again, I am going to add a bus stop over here just to make accessibility better. And then I am going to add a stop. And I still do not understand why these alder trees have leaves in the winter. And we can clearly see them right here. They're supposed to lose their leaves in the winter, but they still have them. Which, on the topic of performance in this game, which is able to be improved nicely, getting rid of leaves would probably do a lot, so wintertime people would enjoy it more, and it won't look so bland, and it'll have its benefits. Nonetheless, though, this area is looking pretty complete. And I think that it is pretty realistic, because it is kind of fanning out from one area, as I kind of noticed with a lot of European cities. I mean, taking London, for example, I know it's on a much larger scale, but it just kind of fans out from one point. Over here, though, I am still seeing there is a problem with this roundabout, and I am really not sure why. So I am once again going to try... Actually, I don't think we even need a roundabout here, so I'm just going to get rid of it and let a traffic light do the work. I do also want to check on our landfill, and it is also doing pretty alright, as it's not super full. And I do actually think I made a mistake a while ago. And instead of increasing the education budget, I increased the garbage management budget. So I am actually going to reverse that and slam the education budget, gonna put our education budget higher, which also gives us a deficit to close. And I think we can do that by increasing residential tax by 1%. And somehow we have managed to perfectly balance the game and have $0 an hour. Okay, well now we're losing money, but I've never seen that before, a perfectly balanced game. Anyways, that's the end of this video, and I really want to thank you for watching through the whole thing. It really means a lot. In the meantime, if you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them down below, and have yourself a great day.